Happy Valentine's Day. I was going to put candles in the studio for you, Rob, you big lover.
Yeah, right.
I
Not
love
me.
you, Rob.
Yeah.
Will you be my Valentine's? I don't have a Valentine's Day.
I know I'm over here at Mallory's in Atlanta, and the baby Chandler's got a red Valentine's suit on, so it looks pretty cool. We got a lot to cover today on Happy Valentine's Day. Look, what way to make your wife or your girlfriend love you more than to know the latest news around the SEC? We're going to start off with
love.
Hey,
love
that is love. That will get the ladies to fight over you. Jason Caldwell.
Gators won last night, so it doesn't matter. Ugly as it may have been.
Well, it's still a win, and that's big coming win. Off of a big win over Auburn the other day. Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, joins us in the first segment, followed by
that's love right there. Did you see that? Your wife just brought you coffee.
Absolutely, in my Braves cup here. See,
that's from love.
They have that at the Auburn Day at the Braves Stadium, which is 0.97 miles from where I sit at the moment. And Jason, by the way, is one of the biggest baseball savants you will ever. He is a baseball junkie. So Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, joins us after Jason Caldwell. And in the third segment, Rocky Top Vince Ferrara up in Knoxville, the sports animal, gives us the latest on Tennessee. Hey, get pen and paper handy. Take notes, because here we come after this.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
Hey, this is my little Valentine, by the way, today. I just want you to know, my little sick Valentine's home today. She's sick, but she's just tell her I love her. Okay, we can play now.
Oh, good. Stella, I hope you get to feeling better. Jason, man, you are busy. I was watching the Auburn Undercover yesterday, the website. There is so much content coming out. And I saw a podcast that was done with Ronnie Sanders and Nathan King. You're doing podcasts. Folks, Jason Caldwell and this crew, 24/7 is an appropriate name. If you follow the Auburn Tigers, you can get your fix any time of the day. And if you go 30 minutes off the site, something new is going to be on there. I love what y'all are doing. Jason, I mentioned how much you love baseball. So I want to talk about basketball, and then I want you to give me the latest of what's going on with Butch Thompson's Tigers. But Tigers, we all know they lost Saturday. And to put it in perspective, that's one thing I love about you. You are really good at calming the waters because fans get frustrated. And you're kind of a quasi de facto psychologist or psychiatrist in a way. Auburn loses the game. Well, then Tennessee loses by 16 on the road at A&M. Monday night, I'm watching Kansas, number 5 or 6 in the country, go to Texas Tech. And, I mean, Bill Self got thrown out of the game. He was so mad. If just puts it in perspective, Auburn's got a pretty damn good basketball team. Talk about the game tonight against South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you look everywhere around the country. Teams go on the road and they lose. That's just the way this thing works. Last night, North Carolina lost at Syracuse. Yet another one.
Wow.
And so, yeah, Kansas lost by 29 at Texas Tech, scored 50 points. It's hard. It's hard to win on the road, and it just shows you the parity in college basketball. That's what it is. There's a lot of good basketball teams, but there's nobody that's a separator right now. I mean, you look at I think Kansas has now lost 6 games all the way from home. The leader in the Big 12, has 4 losses. Houston. I think all those losses are away from home. It's just the way this thing works right now. It's going to set up for just a wild March in the sport. It's going to be. I mean, every year it continues to get crazier and crazier. I think this year's going to be just as crazy. But this Auburn basketball team's still pretty good. Not great. but good enough to go make a run I mean, this team could be a Final Four team. They could also lose in the first round. That's exactly what happened in 2019 when they made the Final Four. They very well could have lost in the first round. That's the way it goes. And so can you get hot at the right time? Can you get a couple of breaks? That'll be the story for this Auburn basketball team and everybody else in the country. And so, yeah, South Carolina tonight, physical team, very different type of team. They want to slow it down some. This is an Auburn team that actually plays fairly well in the half court. Be anxious to see kind of how they respond. I think they'll respond just fine. And, the atmosphere will be wild, sets up for a really big week for Auburn. If you want to challenge for an SEC regular season championship, you have to hold serve at home, still a few more on the road. And for Auburn, that means South Carolina and Kentucky at home this week.
Yeah. Well, look what happened last night. Vanderbilt in the bottom of the league beats A&M coming off that win over Tennessee. That's sending a message there, folks. There are no easy nights. And we already know Missouri has 3 of the top 100 coming in for next year in basketball. So they're down this year. I don't think that'll be long-lived. Auburn at home is, as you say, they got to hold serve. And I said early on, just looking at it, I think you can win this league at 13-5 or 14-4. South Carolina, what scares you if you're an Auburn fan? You can't be scared, but what concerns you the most about Carolina coming into the Neville tonight?
Yeah, I think it's tempo, physicality, slowing the game down, and then rebounding. I think that's the thing. You look and they can shorten the game in a hurry. I think the good thing for Auburn is that this is a team that's more capable of playing that style. In the last few years, maybe they didn't want to do that. This team's capable of playing and winning in the half court. I think they're just fine doing that. So I think for Auburn, it's just about, can you go out and make some shots, kind of get back into a little bit of rhythm. And, you look and look what you ran into the other night. I mean, Florida at home is a really good basketball team. For a half last night, they played the exact same way they did against Auburn. The second half, you look like a team that said, okay, now we've got it. We can relax and do those things. And LSU can shoot it and they can score. And they made that one crazy down the stretch. But you just look at it, I think for Auburn, go out and play your game. South Carolina has had some big wins, but they haven't been tested the length of this SEC schedule to this point. And so, I think for Auburn, can you take advantage of putting them in a hostile situation tonight at Neville Arena?
Yeah. Well, you think about Georgia went on the road, beat South Carolina this year, and people, that's South Carolina's one. That was a shock, top to bottom. I think the league is as strong as I can ever remember it. And as you mentioned, Houston's got 4 or 5 losses all on the road. You got to 5-4. 6-3 is incredible to have a road record like that. And I do think that's what will win. Now, talking about baseball, Auburn, year after year, last year in the second half of the season, Butch Thompson and the Tigers go 12-3. They don't get from D1 and College Baseball America and these different surveys. They get picked 6th or 7th in their division. And that's okay. You just got to go out and back it up. What did Patrick Mahomes keep saying? The Chiefs are never underdogs. I mean, who doubted that he would take that team on his shoulders and put them in the end zone the other night? I didn't. I had the Chiefs to win, so I knew they would. But just kind of talk about the program that he's built, the new addition on the staff, and the $32 million facilities upgrade at Plainsman Park.
Yeah, facilities. I'll start there. They're obviously they opened the season a couple of days and putting the finishing touches on some of those things around Plainsman Park. But it's the first step in kind of putting Auburn baseball. And I mean, we recently we saw them approve a new video board for the north end zone. It's the first step. It's the first step in putting those facilities into the 21st century because they had not been touched basically in this century. And so it's the first step in putting those facilities from a VIP seating, from a premium seating standpoint, all those things to upgrade those facilities. And so for Auburn baseball, it's adding premium seating for the first time. I mean, you have season tickets in Plains Park, but there's not one premium seat, not in the entire stadium. And so now you've added premium seating, you've added some of those luxuries to create some more revenue for Auburn baseball. There'll be more of that coming. But while they did that, they also added a student seating area. Butch Thompson has been the first baseball coach at Auburn to really invest in students. They had BP with BT the other night, trying to build on what they've done in some other sports and start to add a student presence at Auburn baseball. So they have now kind of a platform out right center field. They'll be able to look over the fence, and 250 or 300 students at a time for a baseball game can create a little bit of an environment out there. So they'll do those things. But no, you're right about respect, but it shows you. We just talked about basketball. Basketball isn't even on the same radar as baseball in terms of depth of talent in the league. It's incredible. Auburn's schedule based on last season is the most difficult in the country, but according to D1 baseball. They opened the first 4 series of SEC play against preseason top 11 teams, all 4. So you open your first 12 games are against all teams that are ranked in the top 11 in the country. And so, next weekend you play, Iowa on Friday in game 1, who has a first rounder, a guy that throws 102, 103 miles an hour. You'll have that next week. And then on Sunday you play Virginia, who is always one of the top teams in the country. So it's a challenging schedule, a lot of new faces, for Auburn, Jose Gonzalez, Chase Alsop. Really, for me, those 2 guys, if they can set the tone from a pitching staff standpoint, Christian Herberholz is another starter. They've got some depth in pitching staff. Can those guys be there consistently throughout the season? In the end, that's still the name of the game, even though offense gets all the glory. How well those guys do will determine Auburn's success this season.
And I agree with you. And another quick question before we talk some football. Facilities upgrades. Everybody's been pushing all this, and now NIL comes along. What's more important? I heard a comment. Kevin Steele was on Paul Feinbaum's show recently, and he said, you go in the house now to recruit, and you're talking where do you stand and facilities, tradition, all that's in one category. And then the other one is the money. And you get an answer like, you've got the great facilities, you got the great tradition, but you're not even in the ballpark in terms of NIL money. Have we now built all these facilities, not for nothing, because you are such a damn good writer, and you pointed out you're not even going to get in the conversation with these elite players if you don't have them. But now you've got to have the great facilities and great NIL money. I saw where Auburn, I think, is ranked 7th in the nation in their NIL program. SMU is like number 8, and the folks in Highland Park raised $150 million in a week. They're going crazy. Kind of revenge from 40 years ago. Where does Auburn stand right now? Because I know the Red Elephant Club, the kind and benevolent Red Elephant Club that does good things for college athletes, they're just now starting to pass the hat around. They're so far behind. It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things. To me, it's almost in the same vein of, well, what quarterback's making the most money? Well,
okay.
Depends on who tells you what they have. I mean, I don't know that anybody's opening up a lot of books to tell you how much money they got for NIL and to do these things. But I mean, I think Auburn's continuing to progress. But facilities are always going to be important. It's part of it. And here's the reason why it's part of it. The facilities are now a big part of it for the people that you want to give you money. Because I talked to John Cohen yesterday, and I'll have something coming out tomorrow about facilities. And he said, look, we want those people to get the same amenities they have at home. And that's it. Because if they don't, they're not coming. And if they're not coming, they're not giving you money. And if they're not spending money, then you got to find money somewhere else. So it all ties hand in hand with it. But right now it's about creating an environment that makes people want to come to the stadium. That's the hardest part, because now you have so many availabilities. You have giant TVs and HD and everything. you got to give them a reason to come to the stadium. And I think that's the step that Auburn now, that's what John Cohen, I think, did a great job of while he was at Mississippi State in creating an environment, continuing to add that to Auburn and build on that as well. And so that's it. You still got to have people in the stadium spending money, buying tickets, doing those things, because those are the same people that in the end are going, hey, look, it's important whether or not you win or not. And so it all ties hand in hand. It's all a part of it. And it's all what makes it really, really difficult right now if you're on a college campus, because the same people that you're asking, hey, help us in NIL, are the same people you're asking, hey, help us build facilities.
Yeah.
Sooner or later, those two things won't coexist, and you got to figure out what you're going to do.
Yeah. All right, let's talk some football. You really need the crawl like you see under your television screen when you're watching TV now to keep up with the football roster. When does Auburn start spring practice? When is Auburn's A-Day game? And who is there? Well, again, we're going to have another portal at the end of spring practice. We know that. It's really getting hard, as you know, to keep up with the roster. But then again, that running back room at Auburn, Batey is gone, but that core group is back.
No, Brian Batey's back. He came back out of the portal, so he's still here.
That's right. My mistake.
Yeah. So the question I have right now is will the Southeastern Conference change its stance in the spring and say, yes, hey, you can still transfer from conference school to conference school, because right now that's not allowed. So this next portal window would not include, if you're Auburn, would not include the ability to get a player that left Alabama after spring or Georgia or wherever. You can't do that. They wouldn't be eligible. Will the SEC change its stance on that? Because if they don't, then a school like Alabama, they're going to have to depend on going everywhere else outside the league to get transfers, and they'll be able to do some of those things, but it's going to make it a lot more difficult. And so that's the question I have now in terms of how this portal things work. Will the SEC change its stance, and will that be immediate? Okay. But as far as Auburn's roster goes, your question is going to be, what's our roster look like after spring? Because you'll have some guys that go, hey, I'm not in the plans. Yeah. I'm not going to fit in. I'm going to leave. How many then will you be able to find and add in that you feel like are at that level that can help you? That's the hard part of this. And it's the unfortunate part of it too, because there's going to be a lot of kids that leave and go, hey, I'm going somewhere else, that they weren't able to compete for a job at Auburn. Well, they're not going to compete for a job anywhere else either, and they're going to get left out. And that's the hard part of this right now, is guys make decisions when, hey, you know what, you may be better off going, hey, let's try to stay another year and work and see if I can get on the field. And it's going to leave some people out in the dark.
Well, I think, and I know you're right. You're right on point. Jason, I know you've got a lot going on, so I won't keep you but a couple of more minutes. When you write stories, do you ever feel limited in what you can write and what you want to say? Is because I know sometimes 3,500 words is what it takes to get the point across. But the combination of you and Philip Marshall, both of y'all are great writers. What do you like in today's world? When you first started, could you go on podcasts and radio shows like you can now? Because the traditional newspapers, the Birmingham News, the Commercial Appeal in Memphis, they didn't allow their writers to do it. But by doing it, I think it's made you more versatile than ever.
Yeah, me and Mark Murphy had Inside the Auburn Tigers radio. For 4 or 5 years, Brad Law was our host, and we had that. We had Quentin Riggins and Rod Bramblett, and we did a radio show 5 days a week, 2 hours a day. And so I think that was really beneficial for me in helping me to be able, in this day and age where you have to be able to do so many different things. You have to be able to talk on a podcast. You have to be able to do video. You have to do all those things. And I think it's helped me. I was already doing, photos on the sidelines. So you go, hey, you got to do it all. You got to be able to do a little bit of everything. But the good thing about writing online versus a newspaper is that we have all the room we want. I can write as long as I want to.
Okay.
But normally nowadays, the flip side of that is the attention span of myself and most people isn't to read 3,500 words at a time.
Yeah.
It's to read 500-600 words at a time.
Yeah.
So you try to now, instead of making huge long form stories, which we still do occasionally, now you go, hey, it's more individualized, more specific points about different stories and the way you kind of approach it.
Yeah. Well, I would just say you are so lucky you can tap into a Mark Murphy, a Philip Marshall. Some of these guys who are, I think, elite level writers, and you are too. Jason, let people know how you can be followed, and we appreciate so much you taking your time to join us on Sidelines and look forward to every visit we have with you. It's great.
Yeah, absolutely. You can check us out at auburnundercover.com, part of the 24/7 network, and tons of things going on. Obviously, basketball tonight. Me and myself and Christian Clemente will be on the road today. Going to watch a high school basketball game with some football prospects in it. I'll do the same thing on Friday. So we'll have some of those things. Recruiting, baseball opens Friday against Eastern Kentucky. So have lots going on. Check us out at auburnundercover.com and follow me on Twitter at ITATJason.
I love it. 24/7. We'll be doing it. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
All right. Dudley Dawson, hogville.net, up in the northwest corner of the natural state, the land of opportunity. I'm going to tell you what, you drive across that bridge from Memphis, your stress level goes down. You drive across the bridge into Memphis right now, you're like, watch out. But Dudley, it calms the waters, just like when Jason Caldwell's on. Congratulations on your grandson. I saw the pictures. I saw the video of the kid playing t-ball or whatever that was. He just runs out and tackles those guys. But, man, how many grandchildren do you have now?
That's my first. And in fact,
okay.
I mentioned to my son Brooks that, I was about to turn 60 when they had their announcement that they were pregnant. And I was saying, hey, man, it's about time. Glad you're getting going on this, That's my first one, and he's just the coolest thing ever. I thought having kids was the coolest thing ever. Now I know it's having grandkids.
Oh yeah,
because now you don't have to. You can get them all riled up and just leave them. Say, right. Okay, I gotta go. Enjoy the sugar.
Yeah. I mean, and that is true, Dudley. I mean, you get them. I'm here in Atlanta right now with Mallory and Chandler. She's almost 14 months old. And but she's pretty laid back now. My daughter Hallie's got a baby coming the end of April. That's going to be fun. It's going to be a boy. So I'm gonna buy him a waterfowl hunting license, a lifetime hunting license when he's born. I think that's very important to do. You can buy a sportsman's license, but do that. But Dudley, go ahead.
Twinsies that are Cardinals, Cowboys, and Celtics, while his other grandpa, Durain, is pushing Phillies, 76ers, and Eagles. So,
wow, that's going to make him some bipolar sports fan there, don't you think?
Really? Yeah. But I'm going to teach him not to boo Santa Claus. Yeah, the grandpa's going to teach him to boo Santa Claus. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they actually did that in Philadelphia. That's true story. Dudley, Razorback Report brought to you by Chad House and the great folks at ECS House Industries. Check them out at houseindustriesinc.com. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, right in the heart of the Delta between Wynn and Jonesboro, in a 99,000 square foot warehouse. They do wastewater treatment, aquaculture, agriculture, aquaculture. That's raising fish like crops. And they do it in America and around the world. We are so blessed to have Chad House and the great folks over there. Check him out each year around Christmas Eve. His favorite time of the year is when he gets to write bonus checks to his employees. Damn proud to have them as a sponsor. Dudley, what's going on up there in the northwest corner in Fayetteville that we don't know, that you do know because you do traffic in the truth? I love it.
Well, I don't know about not knowing about it, because we do our best on hogville.net to get everything out there, and all the sports. Obviously, football continues to try to recruit for 2025 and some for 2024, obviously. Basketball is coming off a win. That hasn't happened a ton this year, only 3 conference wins. And then baseball is opening Friday. I'll be, as soon as I get done with y'all here, I'm headed to a preview for the season press conference with Dave Van Horn. That really has, I would think, the most attention going on of Razorback fans around here because they're a consensus top 5 pick. Have a tremendous pitching staff, and Dave Van Horn always puts a quality product on the field, and that seems to be the case again this weekend because of the suffering that the fan base has had to follow basketball. Enthusiastic about the baseball team opening season on Friday with 4 games against the James Madison Dukes.
Well, Razorback Balm Stadium, 14,000 every game. I think Dave Van Horn's been there 20 years, 21 years at Arkansas.
Yes.
I'd love to see the win totals in that time. But you look at a sports program 2 ways. The whole program, Arkansas has got one of the best athletic programs in America. Right now they're struggling with football and basketball. I don't see that being long-term. Looking at basketball, Eric Musselman is a hot commodity. People are trying to link him to every job out there. He strikes me as someone who loves being where he is, but you're better, at knowing what's going on up there. What do you feel like, again, not trafficking in rumors or anything like that, but what do you feel like is going to happen when this season is over? Does the way they finish have a lot to do with him going, okay, these guys didn't tank it, they're still willing to fight, I'll stay and fight with them, or if they tank it, I don't want a part of this?
Well, I really believe there's only a few jobs that he would leave for, and I think some of them are in California, which he considers himself a California guy. I think he mentioned this past weekend he was rooting for the 49ers. He grew up in California at some point. I think that he'll stick here and try to reconfigure this program unless, say, a UCLA job, something like that opens. It's interesting to me that there's a faction of the fan base, just like any other fan base, that because he hasn't had the success this season that he had last season, and I say that when it was more postseason success than it was regular season success, but they're not going to get the chance to get in the postseason in the NCAA tournament unless they have an unbelievable finish here. They did beat Georgia the other day. They've got Tennessee coming in here, as we know, an incredible basketball team. They're coming off a loss. I don't think that helps Arkansas any, but it is an Arkansas team that, at its core, it was able to beat Purdue in a scrimmage game here before 19,200. It was able to beat Duke here. They are perfectly capable of beating Tennessee. I just think it's going to be tough, and I think getting to the NCAA tournament is going to be really tough. So, we might have another fun-filled off-season here in a sport. We'll see. I do think he's happy here, but he's like anybody else. He'll look at his options and see what it's like.
Oh, Rob, we lost you. You there, Rob? There you go. Oh, lost your mic.
I hit that mute button. Yeah. Hey, the Razor's Edge is the Arkansas NIL collective. How many members do they have? And again, we talk about this with every school. We know the big players. I mean, Stevens is the largest off-Wall Street investment bank in America, located in Little Rock. There's J.B. Hunt, there's Tyson, there's Walmart, and there's a lot of people I'm not going to get into, and you know who I'm talking about. But they're not going to carry the load themselves. So who is running the Razor's Edge NIL collective, and what's his background or her background? I don't know who it is.
Her background, and the name escapes me right now, but what I would tell you is that there has never been a lack of money in Arkansas and in Central Arkansas. You can argue that the Delta hasn't been as fluid and as it would like to be. But here's what I would say. I once had one of these boosters up here, and I won't mention him by name, but he told me that the reason he was rich was because he doesn't just throw away money. And when they made the push for the Razor's Edge at the end of football season, I think it was a great thing to do. However, coming off a 4-8 football season was not the optimal time to do that. I do think that it is clear to me. I haven't seen the books, obviously, but it is clear to me that Arkansas is behind in the NIL race in terms of support, in terms of money. You can just see that, when, kids go different places. There's some that they're able to get, some they're not. It's like anything else at any school. It's a salary cap. But it seems to me that Ole Miss and Alabama and Auburn, some others have a much better salary cap they're working with. So while I think there are good people at the Razor's Edge, and I think they have the opportunity to do some real good, just looking at it objectively, they weren't ready when it first happened. They started out behind, and they're playing catch up right now.
Yeah. Hey, we're going to bring in Vince Ferrara from the Sports Animal up in Knoxville. Love having the two of y'all together because Vince looks like he is in Palm Springs, California at a tennis resort. But Vince, Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net's on here with us. We're talking about everything going on up in Fayetteville. And we're doing some different stuff with the show. We're going to a 1 hour format now. I think it's a little easier for people to digest in the podcast world. But, you talk about the overall athletic program. Tennessee went and lost 15 straight to Alabama in football. And, Dudley, we look at Arkansas when they have their runs, the money flows in. When you're doing well in football, the money flows in. But Tennessee basketball, men's and women's basketball, there's a lot of success right now. Especially the men are ranked 5th or 6th or maybe 10th now. But how important is the NIL collective at Tennessee? Talk about it. I want to kind of get this discussion going.
Yeah, it definitely is important. I mean, obviously right now, Tennessee is involved in a lawsuit with the state of Tennessee and Virginia involved in a lawsuit with their attorney generals with the NCAA. They just had their preliminary hearing on yesterday, on Tuesday. So, that's going to continue there. So that's kind of put NIL at the forefront in discussions. But, Spire Sports has been one of the leaders from the jump in the NIL space. And there's not a shortage of money. Obviously, there's got to be, and there is allowed to be now, that communication to be able to use those funds in the right way. And, I'm not an NIL expert, but I know it has been a factor and it's helped Tennessee. Is there more that they can do? Sure. But nobody raises money. I don't want to say nobody, but you out there raise money like this Tennessee athletics program. They've set records, just blown through records in terms of money generated. And some of that is to, help in terms of the collective. That's a part of the deal. You raise money to, hey, let's get some money to these student athletes and improve the talent and the experience of these student athletes. So Tennessee does it well. I think it's mostly utilized by football, but there are still plenty of other athletes that do get good NIL deals. And, it hasn't been like I saw a note that Mike Loxley said that a third string running back demanded $100,000 or else he'd hit the portal. I haven't heard anything like that. That's insane. That's probably why so many coaches around the country are going to the NFL, one of which happened in Tennessee. I'm not saying because of that, but you're seeing more and more coaches, right? Alabama's coordinators, and you see more and more college coaches going to the National Football League. I'm guessing NIL and the portal and having to re-recruit all your players and all that, talking to them about NIL packages instead of getting better as players, that probably is in the NCAA's favor in terms of keeping these really good coaches on hand. So that's the one thing from a on-field football standpoint that's going on right now is Tennessee looking for a new running backs coach.
Well, and just on that point, Vince, I feel like I've got a conspiracy theory going on here, which is the Chip Kellys and a lot of these college coaches dropping to OCs right? Because they're like, okay, well, maybe we should just, be a great offensive coordinator and then we might get a job somewhere in the NFL. I mean, look, you could even talk about that with Billy Napier not getting an offensive coordinator this year, kind of fronting up against the schedule he's going to be. He's probably like catching his bets. He's like, I'm going to get my ass kicked. Like, I might as well go out being an OC and get some experience, maybe get a gig. I mean, I swear, I know it sounds crazy, but I wouldn't want to be a head coach right now in college football. I'm trying to figure this out.
Yeah, it's a good point, but the assistants have to deal with it too. I mean, those assistants still have to deal with it. I know it was just such a dreadful December, especially in January, for some of the Tennessee football assistant coaches. They still are responsible for knowing the rest of the country's rosters and being able to know who to add in the portal. Oh, by the way, they're recruiting for the early signing period. Oh, by the way, they got to re-recruit their own positions and their roster. So yes, the coaches are head coach is ultimately responsible for that. But the staffers have a lot to do with that. I remember asking Tim Banks, Tennessee defensive coordinator in Orlando, about what December was like. And he was like, oh my God, chaos. And he's a DC. So I do think there are things driving them away from it. And maybe there's less responsibility to your point, Brenden, but those guys still as assistants and coordinators still have a lot of those headaches also.
There are very few unicorns out there. There are also very rested, happy assistant football coaches.
Yeah, Dudley, that's what I was going to ask you is and Vince and to Brenden, I think what's going to happen is we're going to have so many good football coaches and then the younger coaches that would work their way up and become the next hot commodities. I think so many of them are going to leave. We're going to see the prices and the salaries of coaches go way down. There's going to be a paradigm shift in there because they're going to say, well, we're not paying you what we were paying that 45, 50, 60-year-old guy who had 35 years of experience when he took over this job. You've got 7 years or 8 years of experience. You're not worth it. That's how the free market naturally corrects things. Okay. When we changed settlement date from T+5 to T+3 in 94, when you settle a trade of a stock or a bond or an investment, you used to have T+5 days. Now, we thought the world was coming to an end back in 94. You know what happened? More people stored assets at securities firms than ever. T+2, we're going to go to T+1. It'll work out. But you see where I'm going, y'all? Y'all agree with that? You're not going to pay a 28-year-old coach what you'd pay a 50-year-old coach with all the experience.
Yeah, I'm just getting a text here from Jimmy Sexton, and it says, quiet.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Jimmy Sexton worked on the 5th floor for 9 years below me when I was on the 6th floor at Regions Morgan Keegan in East Memphis. And we used to see the limos pull up with Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, you name them. And I was telling one guy that used to manage some of their accounts, I said, you better hope to God that account that you have for Warren Sapp and Ray Lewis never goes down, because if you get a call to come to the front that Ray Lewis is with Warren Sapp in the front office to come see you, got to be careful. But no, I'm just saying, I think that's what's going to, you better have a rope to go down the side of the building.
Working lunch.
But Vince, and all of y'all, I really think that's what's going to happen with the coaching salaries, because we can't keep losing all these good coaches. What Vince said about Tim Banks, we've got to, again, guys, the coaches are under so much stress. Is part of life. That's just how we all know that. Either you can live with it or you can't. But Vince, am I pushing this one too hard and saying, now I can't see us paying a 28-year-old coach, but that's what we're going to be left with if we don't find some structure in this mess.
It's hard to say. I mean, I could see your theory playing out that way. You just never know if you have a really successful sort of younger in the grand scheme of things coach, but you want to keep them knowing what the drop off might be or the uncertainty after that. Maybe they start overpaying for the few that are there and to keep those guys. Maybe that's the response to keep them from going to the NFL, is you have to overpay certain coaches. I think before we see that that circle back, that market correction, sort of to your point, I think it's still going to take a while. It seems up in terms of guys going to the NFL, but I don't think we're on the brink of we're cutting these salaries in half. I do think that's a longer term potentially residual if it plays out that way.
In the words of James Edward Buffett, 6 one, half a dozen of the other. I think.
Dudley, you kind of broke up there for a second. You said, what did Jimmy Buffett say?
In the words of James Edward Buffett, the 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. I do agree that there's going to be a run of college these for what would be easier jobs, energy-wise, in the NFL. But I do also think, to Vince's point, that if you're successful, and an athletic director has to say, well, if I let go of this guy, next guy doesn't work out, that's my job. And so I think 6 of one, half a dozen.
Yeah, Dudley, you might want to get a little closer to your mic if you can. I think you're breaking up a little bit. Are you in Philadelphia right now? Are you in Springdale?
I'm in Springdale.
Okay, that sounds much better. But bottom line, we got a hell of an SEC basketball race going on. We got spring practice underway all around the country. Hawaii started like in early February. We got college baseball kicking off. Vince, I was in Knoxville. Got up there Thursday night, spent the night with cousin Mark, Rocky Top Tennessee tailgate report is what I call him, and then went to Charlotte over the weekend. Now we're in Atlanta. The interest of the fans, it's like it's compartmentalized now, isn't it? They're talking. You can have a discussion about NIL or about the games themselves, but fan interest is as strong as ever. That's what I see, and I want your response to that, and then Dudley.
Well, yeah, there was the thought that, all this stuff is ruining college athletics, and maybe it's not what it used to be, but it's not impacting the turnstiles of the ratings, I don't think, not at a lot of the major programs. So as long as that's the case, it looks different. It maybe isn't as pure in terms of like it used to be back when there was more of a romantic element of it in how you consumed your favorite team. But people are still going. There's still a passion for it. That is the case for Tennessee basketball. Set a record for sellouts. The one game in the back half of their home schedule that was not a sellout was the LSU game in advance, and the walk-up sold out. That the rest of their games are sold out. I think their previous record was, I think they said it last year, of 5, and they're, I believe, going to have 8 this year, home sellout. So, and football obviously sells out Neyland all the time, and season ticket sales have never been higher. And baseball is expanding, and they're going to add several thousand when it's all said and done for baseball, and they probably could put in more. But they're kind of limited in terms of land and how big they could expand it. But, the interest in it is incredible. The money generated is incredible. The NIL, transfer portal, all these things that everybody gripes about is not impacting the support for these major universities.
Dudley.
I think that it's right. Certainly when he looks at things, most of the programs over there in Tennessee are winning. I see it a little bit differently because I would say football and basketball haven't been successful here. There were 15,000 the other day instead of a full house at 92 at Bud Walton Arena the other day when Arkansas beat Georgia. There were some who were pointing that out and look how the support has dwindled. I would say that if you've got this team who was 11-10 going in, 2-7 in conference play, and you still have 15,000 show up, that things are not as horrible as maybe you would think they are. I think there's still a lot of support for the sports teams up here that aren't doing well, but the proliferation of games on TV, the things you can do at your house while watching a game, is something I think that winning teams don't have to fight as much, but losing teams do. And that has been the case, I think, with Arkansas football and basketball this year. They still had great attendance, but it hasn't been the overwhelming attendance that they had. I mean, they had 19-2, a sellout crowd when they played in the scrimmage against Purdue. Duke showed up. They were hanging off the rafters. But, you've got these games down the stretch here that I don't think are going to be as well attended because it is much easier for them to sit home and watch ESPN Plus, drink a cold beverage, and not have to pay a certain amount for the food you get there, especially if you're taking your kids and all that. So I do think it's a dichotomy that they're really facing. But it's the important thing in almost anything is to win.
Well, I will say this, that what killed the belief that people want to sit at home in their man cave because it's easier was the draconian lockdowns of the pandemic. Night after night, you would see these dreadful PSAs: stay home, stay safe, stay home, stay alone, stay safe, go broke safely. No way. We're social animals. I'm going to tell you, Vince, when we were driving to Knoxville Thursday, as we got closer, I could just feel my wife, Audrey, who's a Vol for life. I mean, she loves Tennessee. I mean, she even decides which of our dogs are Tennessee fans and which are Auburn fans. It's like, and Mark has 10 season tickets, her cousin. It's like her brother. And massive tailgate by the torch. What do you call the torch guy up there? I just call him the torch guy, right by the circle, right in front of the stadium. And it is so much fun to just even here it was. Thursday was what, February the 8th. I mean, my God. And we're up there Thursday night, went out to Drake's, by the way, which is a really cool restaurant over there near where he lives. But I get near these college towns, and I'm not the only one like this. Dudley, if I'm going to Fayette, people, when I talk to them, they're going to an Arkansas game or Tennessee game. I'm going up on the hill. I'm going up to Fayetteville, up on the hill. The same, they call it Vietnam or whatever. We are social animals. There's only so much of staying home. You can get a 96-inch flat screen TV and watch that game at home. It's just not as fun. Who are you going to bear hug? There's nothing like bear hugging and high-fiving the total stranger next to you or spilling a beer on the lady in front of you's hair. I'm sorry, ma'am. I mean, but we want to be at those games. We're not going to ever stop going to these games. I just don't see it.
I think that's a good point. And what I would say is that you can't get to Dixon Street if you're sitting on your couch. And Dixon Street.
Yeah. I mean, everybody wants to be on the Cumberland Strip, Vince, in Knoxville. I mean, what time are you up? Central, you're Eastern time. You're up at 4:30 every morning doing your show. Once that mic comes on, you're jacked up. You're energized because the fans, you can feel it through their calls, can't you?
Absolutely. Calls, texts, you see it on social media for sure. And I say this about fans that rush the court. Like that still happens when teams beat teams that they beat all the time. Fans are still rushing the court. Like we're doing it too frequently in college athletics now. Yeah. But I think the reason for that, and I think this applies to going to games, is people want to say they were there so they can brag about it on social media with documentation, because that's life today. Is you're on social media. That's why they rush the court. I've talked to college students who are like, they're like, man, I missed the game. I wanted to rush the court. Like that's why they went, is so they could rush the court. Forget who led the team in scoring or who's a dominant rebounder. No, I wanted to be there so I could rush the court and take selfies. Trust me, students that are rushing the court, they want to take selfies and videos, and they want to get a whole bunch of attention because to say they were there and they did it. So that's kind of part of it, and that will be an additional incentive to be able to go to those games. And then there's the gambling aspect of it also. You don't have to be there to take it the other way. If you're a bettor, you don't have to necessarily go to the game to be able to see how you're doing. In fact, there's more appeal probably if you're betting across the board or not emotional betting, to where you can be at home tracking a bunch of your other bets or on your app. And I know at Neyland Stadium, that's one of the parts of the upgrade is the Wi-Fi that would frustrate the heck out of fans.
Yeah.
If you're playing, if you want to track other games just to watch, but if you're betting and you can't see what's going on, that's going to frustrate the heck out of you. They're improving that, and they've actually moved it up in priority because so many people were upset about that. So the fan experience has to continue to be upgraded to keep those fans going. To Dudley's point, to offset that competition of the convenience of being able to watch sports at home.
Well, that's part of the problem is that when you put in 90,000+ people in one place and they're all on the same Wi-Fi and they're all in your own network. I mean, we struggle with that at the Swamp, and we'll have photographer on the field trying to send pictures up to the guys in the press box.
Right.
And we've got we use Signal app just because we can lock in and send things easier. But it's a problem, and you're right about the fan experience, and it's important. And I think if you're not cognizant of that anymore, you're really gonna people will stop going in a lot of ways because they've got to be able to be on their phones.
Yeah. Well, that's a fear. I mean, people they have a DJ over in the corner in the student section at Jordan-Hare Stadium now.
Oh, all of them do, yeah.
Tennessee does, yeah. Everybody does, yeah.
Okay.
Neyland Stadium is my favorite, by the way. I mean, I've been to all of them, and Neyland Stadium, it's so awesome.
And that's former Tennessee.
Can you get me in the Tennessee Navy? Because I want to go on. I just one time. I'm going to document it. Can you and I just go get like Sports Animal on the Navy and just like go down? Because I want to do it once in my life.
Hey, I haven't done it either, so I'm with you. So yeah, we'll experience that for sure. Ready?
Yeah. Hey, Dudley, I know you've said you've got a tight exit here. So and we're going to go a few more minutes. Stay on with us, Vince. But Dudley, you've got to get to a press conference. Let people know how they can follow you. And as always, Dudley, really appreciate you taking time to share with us. It means a hell of a lot to our viewers everywhere. You work your tail off, and I want you to get all the followers in the world.
Hey, it's my pleasure, man. Thank y'all for inviting me on. Hogville.net is our website. We cover all sports up here, and with me, Otis Kirk, Kevin McPherson, John D. James, so many guys that really get after it. And this is a fun time of year for us because a lot of stuff's going on. Also, the high school site is fearlessfriday.com. I say it all the time, but I have a lot of passion for high school sports. I think it feeds into college sports, obviously, both figuratively and literally. And then on my Twitter handle, Dead Sports, DD Sports, you of course can hear about my favorite teams, and now you can hear about the H Train, Arthur D. Dawson, who not sure how his my son, his dad is going to take me nickname it H Train, but the grandpa, throw out fun name.
I love it, man. Well, look, be good. We'll talk to you here in the next week, and look forward to following the Razorbacks. Dudley Dawson, I'll tell you, Vince, I'm with Brenden. If you talk to longtime fans, Auburn, Alabama, Gators, that have traditionally, well, especially Auburn and Alabama, that have gone to Neyland forever, the banks of the Tennessee River, the sunrise in the morning, the Vol Navy coming up. I mean, I'm from Memphis. I got a couple of Tennessee friends. I got a lot of them, but I know a lot of Gators. I know that's what what's the coolest thing. You know what I always have done when Auburn loses a game. I don't like it, but I go shake hands with as many of the opposing team's fans as I can and congratulate them. It just kind of calms me down. But I learned it from Shug Jordan, Pat Dye, different coaches. Give all the credit in the world to that team. Don't make excuses. Try to get better. But the camaraderie, the family that we have in the SEC. I love going to Florida. I've been down there to the Swamp. That's a cool place. Now, it's tough to win, but I'm going to tell you something we learned in the pandemic. We need each other. We better be careful about wishing everybody loses and bad news. Why do you think Florida State didn't get into the college football playoff this year? The ACC was perceived as weak by the national media. The SEC, you could have 2 losses and would have gotten into the playoffs, Vince.
Yeah, there's always the debate. Do you root for the other teams in your conference? And, some fans are, I admit I will root for the other teams in the league. And others are like, absolutely not. They're dead to me. They're just, there's the extremes on that. Some, I bet, do root for the other SEC teams, but don't publicly put it out there, just sort of privately. Go. But it in some cases it works for you. And then, there's recruiting also too.
Yeah.
Teams that you compete against. Do you want to see them? Do you want to see another team, win a national championship or get in the college football playoffs, so where it raises their profile and now your team has a tougher time in recruiting against them? So there's always those other factors. But the SEC, I don't think, has too much to worry about in terms of the league profile. They're pretty good in all sports.
But don't you want to say too? It's like strength. It comes from like that strength of schedule for like hey, we want to talk about. Well, we're in the SEC, right? And then you do the bowl games, and you're like, well, look, the SEC was 8-2 in the bowl. You guys don't know what it's like. You're in a real conference. So I think for me, that's where it always comes from. Because it's like it's when you're talking smack to your boys.
Yeah. Well, and you don't see in other conferences them yelling Pac-12, Big Ten in the corner of the stadium in a big win. But the best thing about it is the young kids today, and I've got them 23, 25, 27, and 35, 3 Auburns and 1 Alabama. I probably have more Alabama friends than anything. And I'm an Auburn grad. And we don't hunt together on the day of the Iron Bowl. I mean, I'm there usually, but I'm just saying.
Yeah, there are guns around. You don't want to do that.
You don't want to do that.
I thought I was accused of blasphemy and witchcraft and sorcery when the morning of the Iron Bowl, I texted to a group split Auburn and Alabama about 50-50. I said, Auburn wins 27-24. And they're like, what are you smoking, Browne? I'm like, I'm seeing it. And Auburn rushing 2. I'm having PTSD about that. But that's as bad. But then again, if Auburn would have beaten Alabama 2 years earlier when Tank Bigsby didn't stay in bounds and Auburn gets the win, Brian Harsin might still be the football coach at Auburn. Now that'll give you a double PTSD. Vince, you're putting out great content. Unbelievable, 3 hours a day. And you and John Wilkerson, the Vol Network. The Vol Network is one of the best in America. I remember at one time they had 152 affiliates. Didn't they go out and build that grassroots? We've got to have radio. You can't go to the game without listening to the radio. But let people know how they can follow you, keep up with you and all the great work that you're doing. And again, I like to say this to everybody. Brenden, unbelievable job as our executive producer. But thank you for sharing your time with us. And those of you that are listening, Jason Caldwell, Auburn Undercover, that's what we're here for. We're here to serve.
Yeah, always fun. Real quick, we're talking about the fans. Rick Barnes was asked about the fans at Texas A&M after their loss there, and he was like, "Yeah, they do a good job here. It wasn't overwhelming." He said they need to teach them that chanting overrated only makes them look worse. Like that is the stupidest thing in
I agree.
Fans do.
Don't they teach that in fish school in the Colt down there? Because I don't know, they got everything else going on. They got guys going. I mean, it's the weirdest.
Well, but their fans are
like,
so
yeah.
But their fans are so loyal, though. I mean, like Casey Goodjohn, our friend from out in Claiborne County, Texas, they are rabid. But I said the same thing. They were yelling overrated Texas Tech fans at Kansas the other day. It's like, well, then, so you beat nobody?
Right. That's exactly
Brilliant
right.
Point.
That's what Barnes said. It doesn't make any sense. And I know you're just trying to annoy the other team.
Yeah.
But that's not going to work. They're already annoyed, and it takes away from what you just accomplished. And that's what Barnes was pontificating about it. It's not exclusive to A&M. I mean, they were doing it, so you talked about it in the moment. Everybody does it, and everybody is stupid for
They
doing
should
that.
just be chanting overpaid, overpaid,
overpaid.
Right.
Yeah.
So real quick, you can find our show on streaming 991thesportsanimal.com or the Sports Animal app. Anytime you want to track us down, we really appreciate it. 6 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. John Wilkerson and myself for the Tennessee baseball team. John's been longtime baseball voice. I call mostly the home games and some postseason as well. John will be in Texas for the Shriners Classic at Globe Life Field, home of the Major League Baseball World Series champions, the Texas Rangers. That's where there'll be some Big 12 schools, Baylor, Oklahoma, Texas Tech, that Tennessee will play this weekend. College baseball season starts Friday, and Tennessee will have a really good team, top 10, picked second by the SEC in the East behind Florida. Will be a lot of fun once again this year, talk baseball with you, and always a pleasure to do it on the show. I'm on a Sunday morning TV show, The Sports Source, on the local ABC affiliate, in that rotation there. I do the Vol Network pregame interviews. Zakai Ziegler played 40 minutes last game, one of the best point guards in the country. He's my pregame interview, and then so many other things on podcasts that you can find on our website, 991thesportsanimal.com, blogs and all that other stuff, much more in terms of content on the web.
Yeah, True Grit Journalism's alive and well. And coming soon on the Cumberland Strip, Mama Ferrara's Italian Deli.
We need it.
Hey, you got to have it. Nobody.
Money.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey,
ship that to me. Thanks, Vince. You got a good one. We'll see you next time.
Hey, man, we live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Love all of our fans, our viewers. Tell your friends about this show. Everybody in the SEC, our job is to cover, find out what's going on, get the best guests, and engage them. And Brenden, that's a lot of fun.
Just be about the love, Rob. It's all about the love, man.
Hey,
I mean,
a lot of people
just love, man.
Where's the apology from Travis Kelce for shoving his coach? What in the wide, wide world of sports, as Slim Pickens would say, what in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Hey, we're out of here. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Good night, everybody. Oh, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Goodbye. Good night. See you later.
Good
Bye.
morning. Okay.
Bye.
Sidelines.